Hello and welcome to season 3, episode 5 of Fabrically Speaking Live. I'm your host, Claire Rowley, inventor of the Creative Feet line of sewing machine products. And oh my goodness, we have a new service that we're using and it failed today. Everything looked good to go and it just didn't work. So I'm going to get on the phone with them this week, because apparently I'm not doing well on the tutorials. And never ever plan an event after midnight. So if you got to notice that we're going live tomorrow, well, that was because I posted after midnight and the date I put the next day because I didn't realize it was after midnight. So I'll get better. I tell you what, I couldn't handle having the big table on my machine, so I've switched machines today. If you haven't seen this one yet, this is my jungle machine. And there's monkeys up here in the trees. Wrong spot. Over there. I love this machine. Hello, everybody. Hello, Ayako. And thank you guys for being so understanding. This is actually a take 2 of season 3, episode 5. And I'm probably just going to delete those 3 other, I don't know, I might leave them up. Never know what I'm teaching. So today I'm going to give away a beautiful little sewing machine pendant at the end of the show. We will do a drawing, not live, but I'll go ahead and show you it. It's very pretty. And it has a little hooky, so you can put it on a keychain or anything that you might want to hang it on. But it's really quite pretty. It has an antique gold. Hello, Donna. Hello, Tina. Okay, so we're going to see how this goes. Live on a Saturday, which normally, but people are out having, going out to breakfast and having fun. And however, a good portion of the United States is under a storm advisory, having a cyclone snowstorm. And for those of you who are joining me because you're snowed in, welcome. And I hope that you subscribe to my channel, as we do have a weekly show that usually airs on Thursday at 2:00. I also have a live or a online school that's free for you to join. The links are at the top of the chat right now, so that if you're interested in going to our website where you can find all the products that we offer and the school. I'm going to trim this down and kind of go over what we've done so far to get ready for the binding. One thing is that when you do faux binding or faux piping binding, what you're trying to do is create the look of a piping running along the inside edge of the binding, which I have on this. So it appears as though I've sewed a piping in here, but I actually just have a piece of fabric that was sewn together with another piece of fabric. This is going to be the piping that I'm going to use for this sunflower. So the piping fabric, even though you see less of it, is cut wider than your fabric that you see the majority of on the front and the back of your quilt. It goes against logic. And the measurements and all of the steps to this will be in the school at some point. So the faux piping color is cut to 1 3/4 inches, and the majority of what you see is cut smaller. It's cut at 1 1/2. Then you sew the two together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and you lose that extra 1/2 inch. And now you have a 2 1/2 inch piping or binding that's sewn of more than one piece. And just imagine what you can do with this. You could actually do more than one. You could do, well, we won't get too deep into this. Then you just fold this and you bring your edges together. And then it creates that piping look on the edge of your binding. And so this is what's going to end up being on my sunflower quilt or placemat that I've been working on. For a bonus at the end, I will be quilting some of this after the binding has been applied to show you that you can bind first and quilt second. I don't know, Pat. Is that Pat? My eyes. They may call it flange. You know, the people come up with names, and not everyone, you know, somebody does this, creates this. Well, somebody else may have already done it. And so that person believes that they're the originator of this technique. Then they give it a name. But this is a technique done in garment construction as well. So this may be relatively new to quilting, but it's not new to me. And it was faux piping, as piping is a flat piece of fabric sewn into a seam. Well, it's a lot easier to sew one piece or fabrics that behave as one piece into a seam than it is to sew two pieces and try to make it all line up. And if you try to turn around a collar, then that piping, if it's in there and it's got cording in there, it's hard to turn those 90-degree corners. So this originated years and years and years ago in sewing, garment sewing, long before it ever became a binding technique. So the two measurements, if you're making notes, and I was going to type it in the chat, but it's going to be on a little pattern or step-by-step tutorial right up inside of Create with Claire Rowley, and that is create.clairerowley.com. Thank you for the blessings. Blessings to you as well. I can't make up your name because it's a bunch of letters. Okay. I couldn't believe I set it for Sunday. I have to blame myself. I can't blame the program. It's working for many, many other educators out there. Just I'm having issues learning it. I thought for sure I had it down. So Karen, you can change your name that you show, and I'll try to remember, but it's a lot of letters to remember. So it looks like you got hat in your name. So I'll try to remember. But welcome. Piping color is cut 1 3/4, and the regular binding color is cut 1 1/2, and then we're going to sew them together. I already stitched around the majority of this and created a edge stitch around the actual quilt. I don't know why I'm talking the way I am. And I do that generally 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. I realize I didn't do that this time, so I really should have done that. The reason I had trouble sewing around this is because I just sewed, and here I've left an area unsewn. This is a lot easier to do with our liquid-based glue holding this fabric down to the batting. So I have just this little section that I will be gluing to show you the actual steps that I follow. I plan on doing some more bees, maybe a butterfly today. Another time I use the glue is for the binding, for folding it over. If you've ever sewn or ironed your binding, folded it over, and then had the back fall down and you didn't know because you can't see it, but it actually did that on the back side, then you'll understand why I highly recommend that you use our basting glue to not only, we're not only going to press it over, but we're going to secure the two together. And it is a water-soluble stabilizer in a bottle, so it doesn't gum up your sewing machine needle, and you don't even have to wait for it to fully dry. something else good to know is that it washes out, and you can do several dots. Hold on. I'm going to mute myself and get the dog to step outside. Hold on one sec. He's a good watchdog. Okay. So little dots along the edge. And then you slide your finger across very gently because we want to keep that glue on the top of that fabric. And then we just fold it over, getting your edges together. If you want to watch all of the steps for making this little oversized placemat, is what I have here. And I have a table in my living room that needs something because it's very old. It's an antique actually, and it's not in good condition. Notice I don't glue on the side or clip on the side where I'm gluing. And that's because I don't want to put the glue in the fabric. But a nice thing about these clips is that they're bigger, so I can clip on this side and then go past the glue line. And that prevents me from pushing the glue through the fabric. If you do that, all that happens is it won't hold, and you'll need to glue again. Piping fabric is cut to 1 3/4 inches, and the binding fabric, this can be confusing because it's all a binding. The binding fabric is cut to 1 1/2. Once you sew them together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, you lose 1/2 inch, making it a overall piece or strip of binding that's 2 1/2 inches. Now that's if you want to do the traditional size piping or binding. You can do any size binding. You don't have to always do this smaller piping or binding. Hello, Elaine from Colorado and Nikki from Pensacola, Florida. Did I hear it snowed in Florida on the beach this morning? I think I did. How many of you are watching snowfall right now? Hello, Pearl from North Carolina. It's cold there, but not snowing. Is it missing you? I would love to watch it snow today. We've barely had any snow this season. However, it's only halfway through winter, so we still got plenty of time. 1 1/2 for the multicolored fabric that you see here, and the yellow fabric. Oh, I did. Yeah. So it's so easy to get turned around when you do something that's not logical. So we're going to see barely any of the yellow fabric, but the yellow fabric is bigger. It's on the back and it's on the front. So that's why it has to be bigger. And then the process of sewing binding on, well, the yellow on the back will just vanish. Because this is the actual typical fold over binding. We're just using 2 strips of fabric to do this. So the process of sewing the mitered corners is in last week's, and maybe I'll show it again because I have some extra so that you guys can see how to do your mitered corners or mitered joins. And you can see that I have a square of fabric left there. It's a lot easier when you're sewing it on, coming back around for that final stitch. It barely has to go over any fabric, whereas if you have that cut to a 1/4 inch, well, the foot is going over a mountain, over a mountain, over a mountain as it goes over the binding, and it does make it more likely for you to shift your fabric. You're welcome to trim those joins to 1/4 inch if you're comfortable doing that. This is just how I do it. That looks kind of cool from above. What you see in this little basket that I made using the Octi hoops as a pattern in the early part of season 2 is a container built from using this as a pattern. Also, if you like to do octagon shaped quilt squares, well, you get 3 different sizes of them with the Octi hoop kit. And you can use these as rulers, or as you can cut your trace around the inside and cut that for your stabilizer, and then cut around the outside and use that as the fabric. Iron your stabilizer onto your fabric, and you can use it to do hand applique techniques. No snow in Florida. There was somewhere in Florida. I can't remember this city. Somewhere. Either it was today or it was another year. I know when my daughter was born in 1989, it snowed in LA. We lived in LA at the time. I love to tell the story of her birth because the night before we had an earthquake. So the earth shook, and then I went into labor. And then when I brought her home, it snowed in LA. So she really rocked this world coming in. It snowed in Alabama. Hello and welcome, everybody. So it's really cold here too in Arizona. And some of you don't know it snows in Arizona, but it does. We're a varied state. We have desert, and then we have high desert, and then we have the mountains and pines, and one of the largest forests in the world. And it's cold today. It was below freezing when I woke up. And I know those of you who live in the northern part of the country, you're like, that's warm. Yeah, I wouldn't imagine. I used to come to Clearwater, Florida and go on the Home Shopping Network years and years ago. The last year I was on was 1998. Yay, Iris. Welcome. It's so funny because I was thinking about Iris. It's been a while since I'd heard from you. And another person, Rose Peterson, I hadn't seen her either, and I was worried about you guys. And then you popped up, and she did too. So glad that you guys are okay. If you want your water-soluble stabilizer in a bottle, our glue, our liquid base to dry faster, you can iron as you're doing this. Work, work, work. We are blessed when we have work, aren't we? This is when you'll see whether or not you sewed straight. I keep dipping my sleeve on the edge of my glue, so I'm going to have little dots of glue on there. In Bremerton, Washington today. It's a cool day. Well, you guys had colder weather than usual this year. Almost done with this. I know this is boring part. But it's worth it sometimes to take the time to do this rather than just winging it. Especially when you have 2 differing fabrics. And this is a really lightweight, affordable batik that I got from Joann's or Hobby Lobby, one of those. And on the back is a high quality Kona cotton, which is significantly thicker. So if you go to just wing this, in other words, just fold it over and sew, holding it and sewing, you're likely to stretch out that thinner fabric. And because they are going to be used as one thing, it's important that they are not stretched separately. So this glue, even though it's not really a glue, the water-soluble stabilizer will dry and join those two fabrics together and stabilize them so that they both will not stretch as you go to sew it. So you'll have less chance of having a pucker on your quilt binding. It's not boring to you? Thank you. Sewing and try. Oh, you put your name on there now, so I know you're Allison. Thank you for that. Okay. Chase is walking around the table. Hi, Chase boy. What's up? He's like, it's Saturday. What are you doing? This is not what you do on Saturday. On Saturday, we do things together. What's up with that? All right, you have to say hi. Chase is happy Saturday. Ow. I love you too. I know. Oh, don't whine. Be a good boy. Be a good boy. I think sometimes I say his name in a sentence or something that sounds like it, and he thinks I've called him. Okay, now for my least favorite thing. You know it's winter when your feet are freezing and you're hot on top because you're wearing sweaters, and I can't wear shoes and sew very well. I did that the other day and the foot control kept running away. Isn't it pretty together? I really like it. Another thing I do, it'd be kind of fun to have a ironing mat that's an applique, wouldn't it? But we'd be like getting it dirty. Spray based over the binding. It's not water, so it doesn't dissolve the glue. And I'm not moving the iron. I'm setting it there, allowing it to steam off the spray adhesive. No, it's not spray adhesive. The spray starch. And just so you know, I have asthma and I have never had any issues with this brand of spray starch causing any kind of issue with my breathing. And I get it at the grocery store. I do get the professional grade, and you know what? It's super cheap. I have the steam on. You can not use steam or use steam for this. Okay, Sandy, so I actually push the fabric to the foot. A lot of people think I let go. And I'll be sewing with it in just a moment. If your fabric won't feed like mine wasn't yesterday, my feed or my pressure was set too low. I had done applique, and when you do applique, it's nice to have a light pressure. But when you do seam allowances, it's better to have normal pressure. But a lot of people think I let go of the fabric when I sew, and I'll be showing you what I do. And if your sewing machine is older and you only have 2 rows of feed dogs, you're going to need to help push or guide, be more aware of your guiding. The newer sewing machines with a wider zigzag stitch have more rows of feed dogs, and that makes them guide more consistently. But if you ever have trouble with something, you can take a picture or call, because I do take calls. If any of you have ever been on a phone call with me, share in the chat that I don't mind. Because, oh my God, I don't have my mat under there. No. Should have taken this off. I could be ruining my tablet. I could feel my mat getting warped. And this is how you learn things without ruining your own stuff. Bad behavior. Just because I was enjoying ironing on my applique. You can see this is a little warpy now. Ugh. Good thing their mats aren't that expensive. Hi, Lorinda from Oregon. Ayako got a lot of my time. We had a really good conversation. Used to be I get a lot of calls. In fact, when I was writing my book and I realized someone asked about the book last time and I talked about a different book, but I have the Creative Feet Technical Guide and Workbook at creativefeet.com under books and videos, and you can buy it on a USB stick and stick it on your computer and print it out, and then also have it like in your cloud. I was going to show you something here real quick. So I deliberately glued a little bit wrong so that you can see that you can peel it apart if you do. Definitely easier with tweezers. And you have the opportunity to fix it now. And this will instantly dry the stabilizer, by the way. To iron over it. Sometimes when we're preparing and we do something like that, we think, oh, well, that's not right. And this is where I didn't have it pulled apart. So even though the seam allowance was sewn correctly, thanks to the satin edge foot, but this is why I don't like to just iron first. I usually use my presser first so that I get a more accurate press. All right, continue our Have you used your tweezers, Ayako? Aren't they awesome? And we emailed Caterpillar yesterday. For those of you waiting for the Caterpillar light tablets, they are on a boat just waiting to be unloaded in Los Angeles. I know this Caterpillar will be mailing them out to you. So you won't have an extra delay of them mailing it to us and then we mail it out to you. Anyone waiting on batting, know that we have it in stock. It's just we have so many orders and that it takes us longer than it ever has to ship our orders out. It's been consistent for about 3 weeks now that I can't get all the orders out every day, which is awesome, but we like to be the day you order, the order goes out. Okay, so this is now joined together and will act just like one piece of fabric. And it has body. And the way that we cut the way that you should cut your fabric, if your quilt is square or rectangular, you should cut your fabric for your bindings across the grain so that you have just a little bit of give in the fabric, not bias. If you cut on the bias, your binding will in essence be a stretch fabric, and you will not be sewing it on the stretch. You'll be sewing it on a rectangle. Now you might think, well, my quilt tops are not cut in any particular way. I cut my fabric in all different directions and I cross the seams. Sometimes they're curves. And so your quilt top is in essence a stretch fabric. However, when you go and place your top on a solid back, well, now you have made the top behave like the back. And that's true if you can get the top and the batting and the back to behave as one, kind of like what we're doing here. We want to have the quilt itself and the binding behave as one so that the top doesn't pucker along the batting or binding line. There's too many words. I'm bandage free today. You were trying to play with the edge of your bandages. Did you mean to write bandages? I don't know what you mean. Try writing it again. I know Ayako's you're injured right now, right? You're still healing from something. I have a lot of communications with people, and so I try to keep all your projects and stuff and points in my head, but I fail sometimes. I'm going to go ahead and spray starch the top of my quilt as well. And this is really one of the best things you can do before you bind your entire quilt if you can. Because if you have overhandled your fabric when sewing, and pretty much every class I ever taught, almost everyone overhandled their fabric. This will kind of shrink up the wrinkles. I'll show you. I know it's hard to see with black fabric, but there's like kind of over handling from me doing all kinds of things with this. And you can see how the batting is actually stuck to this fabric. And this is why you won't see me baste all along the quilt. If you feel the need to secure the top and the batting and the back together, you can do that with our liquid baste. And just do some dots about every 4 inches. And then just slide your fingers across. And now that's kind of like a spray base, but not. There's no sticky stuff that's going to get on your needle. And it's smooth it out beautifully. And you can do the same thing on the back, but watch how the batting is connected to the fabric. It's kind of like fingers going, no, don't go away from me. So you have less chance of puckering with the bamboo batting than you do with any other batting. But this is for those of you who are a little nervous about not basting or pinning your quilt pieces together. And on a king size quilt, you betcha I'll be doing that. Because some of you may have even thought, you want me to take my entire quilt and put it on my ironing board and iron it? I would put it on the floor, honestly. And when you're ironing, you don't want to move the iron around. It's a lifting. You may not notice that I'm lifting it up. I just don't need to lift it that much. So it's kind of a hopping that I do. Oh, you were playing with your bandages, like sewing with them? What kind of bandages? So now I'm pushing steam through the quilt once again, not ironing, but pressing. And this will kind of shrink up. Make sure your iron is clean. This black fabric is... I use tape too to remove all the stuff on the back. Now I'm not as worried about the back. See, I can iron the back because the back is not stretched out. There aren't any pieces that were cut on different directions, and once again I'm going to spray starch it. I saw this one educator, she soaks her fabric in starch and then hangs it to dry in her bathroom, but basically she's got it. She knows that starched fabric is a lot easier to handle than non-starched. But I think that's a little overkill. All right. So you can see I didn't stitch it here, and I really want to, so I'm going to. It helps when you do the binding attaching. Aw. Well, I hope your granddaughter wins, Janet. Are you at the swim meet or are you watching the swim meet? Nowadays, we can take our TVs with us. If you want to get my binding tutorial, which is on one method of binding, but it's step by step, all of the things that you do to get ready for binding, and you don't have to watch me talk to other people on the stream. And do have that on my YouTube channel, but we also offer it on a USB and flash drive, so you can put it in your phone so that when it's time for you to do binding, you can just go binding and not have to try to find it in my YouTube channel. I'm going to check now that I have enough. Should have checked yesterday or Thursday. And you don't make just enough. You make just enough plus like 18 inches. And that's for the end where we join them together. And then you think about where would you want to have the join be if you don't do a good job on it. Yeah, quilting doesn't have to be all fill-in stitches. You can draw on your quilt, which makes it a lot more fun. I'm enjoying the bee too. I want to do more. It's like mostly there are bees on sunflowers, but I was like, it would be fun to do a dragonfly too. Maybe we'll do another project for that. So for right now, I'm going to, before I trim this, I'm going to do the edge stitching around the top as I already have for the other areas. This is another sewing machine, so I check the needle by running my fingers down to feel that there aren't any burrs on it, and there aren't. I don't know which needle it is though. It doesn't appear to be the super non-stretch, but since I have no idea what I use because it's been a couple months at least since I've used this machine, I'm going to leave it on because of what I'm making. And I rarely ever use a sharp or denim or leather needle, so I'm not at risk of damaging it. Hi, Charlene. Well, it's a Saturday. I thought I'd give you guys a Saturday. I want to warm up my feet. I gotta pick up one of my feet. It's ice. It's too hot in here. I need a heater for my feet. Okay, the satin edge foot is the foot that I'm going to use, and if you buy it all by itself, it comes packaged like this. When you can peel it open and then take out the stuff inside, use it, and put it all back so that when you go to use it 6 months later, you still have all of the information. Or do whatever you want, because people make special little things to put our feet in. All right, so here we go. The satin edge foot is a foot I designed for a blind and deaf sewer. And hers was not adjustable. Actually made about 15 different feet for her. But one of the things she wanted to do was what a serger does, which is, at the time, it was napkin edging. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to put you on a serger because you can't see. And she was a smart aleck, so she didn't take that. She just went, I know you'll figure something out. And so I heard her voice in my head, even though she couldn't speak because she was also deaf. I kept hearing her say, I know you'll figure something out. So this was what was born out of it. And once I made it adjust so that it would fit all machines, it then went from 1 foot to 27 different feet. This 1 foot does top stitching, edge stitching, pin tucking, invisible applique stitching in a ditch, charted needle design without the use of knitting needles, cut work without the use of a hoop, wire edges, fishing line edges, lettuce edging, trapunto applique, blanket stitch applique, edge joining, t-shirt hemming, and more. And all of that is not in this little book. What you read on the outside of this booklet is what the instructions are that are included. If you want to learn everything else, it's a binder that I offer. And each foot, when you come with it, it comes with an overview of what the foot has on it and a table of contents and my phone number and email and the school. All of it is in there. So there's no reason why you can't get the help you need. And these are the different adapters. And you can see these are Bernina adapters. These are options for the Bernina sewing machine. And if you have a sewing machine and you don't think it will work, please don't hesitate to reach out. I will assist you. So that's how the Bernina would go on. Now, if you have a Bernina, I don't know, somebody has a machine that they're having trouble with today, but I didn't get an answer as to what machine she has yet. If you have a snap-on adapter on your machine, first try to snap it on, because good 90% of all sewing machines will just snap our foot right on. They have like this little wire that hooks on to our guide, or our wire, or our guide pin. It's Saturday. Tell you what, I couldn't sleep last night. The feet are not just sold in this manner, they're also sold as sets. After you see what you can do with our feet, you probably will want all 3. They're also sold in basic, special, package, and educational packages. And the 3 feet combined do over 88 different things. They are guaranteed to fit your machine, so you don't have to worry if you have any issue. And sometimes people just go, I just want to return it just because I'm too stressed out. I'm just too stressed out about it. And we're like, you can return. There's no excuse that we don't accept, because I've been doing this for 33 years. That's how old my daughter just turned. I go, are you 33 or 34? And she goes, Mother, every year you do this. I go, baby, I can't remember how old you are because you're the same old age as my company. I need to know how old you are to know how old my company is. She goes, you always try to make me a year older than I am. So I'm going to put the foot on the machine and set it up. Here we go. And let's see. I'm putting the binding. I have no bobbin in. And since I matched the thread to the binding. Is that what I do? I can't remember. It doesn't really matter. You don't see any stitching when you're finished anyway. That's what's one of the coolest things about this. And I have the Deco Bob 80 weight in the bobbin. Come on, drawer open. There we go. Deco Bob comes in pre-wound bobbins, so you don't have to wind them. And one bobbin is the equivalent of, geez, is double the amount of thread that you can wind on a bobbin, but even more than that, because most people, sewing machine will not let you wind a bobbin all the way to the edge. So you get a lot more thread on there than you realize. It also comes in mini king cones, so you can match it to the top. But I'm going to use the Invisifill in the needle because it's on the machine already. And because I do kind of recommend that you use it. It's very thin. And on your diagonal sewing, it's going to disappear into the fabric more than a heavier thread. It also allows you to sew a shorter stitch length. So a lot of you ask me, why do you have so many different kinds of thread, and what's the point of it all? Do you really want me to buy all of those colors and all of those sizes? Well, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. But there is science to all of this. You know, the fabric has a grain and you can see the fibers crisscrossing. So we want to use a thread that is thinner than the fibers in the fabric if you don't want your stitches to show. If you want your stitches to show like the sunflower quilting that I did here, then you can go bigger than your thread fiber on your fabric, like a 40 weight embroidery thread. And that is basically the difference between embroidery and sewing thread, is the thickness and how much it shines and the cost. And I put the satinage away, but I have one here. I got my favorite presser back in my sewing room. And it's just the color. I love it. Which is interesting because this one doesn't sell as well. But I just love the different colors of green. See how it has like olive green and hunter green? It almost goes to yellow. This is the green hornet, and I just absolutely love it. But you don't have to like what I like. This one's blue hornet. Then we have tequila sunrise, which a lot of people like because it shows up in their tools. This is the passionate pink, but this one was cooked too long, so it got darker. Passionate pink is more bright like that than this one. I get the mishaps. This is the red velvet. And if you look at the site, you'll see these are much prettier when I'm holding them on this light than they are on our website. Really need to do a new photo shoot. But the point of these is that they eliminate ironing a lot, and when we do the binding, we're going to press every corner using the presser instead of an iron. What am I looking for? Oh, the satinage foot. Gosh. I'm not usually on Saturdays, and I think my brain is realizing that. Is this really Fabrically Speaking live, or is this just we're hanging out with the students in the school day? Okay. So the guide and how I showed you that there is, did I show you the foot? I think that was the other day. It was too recent. So on this foot, there is a white guide, and the white guide has this little wire that comes out of it. You can't really see it right now because it's lined up right with the edge of the foot, which is my machine's location for a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So you see how that moves? That means you can position your needle in all of these different positions. So if you want to do an edge stitch around a collar or a pocket, top stitch around a pocket, or create pin text, you can create varying sizes from all these different stopping points. So wherever you stop the guide wire and wherever the needle is in relation to it is a distance you can achieve. Where a lot of feet are in one position and you're limited as to how far away you can sew from something. This one is pretty much almost limitless. Your sewing machine is what limits you as to what you can do with this foot. It even works on a featherweight, but you can't use it for a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You missed the VIP Zoom meetings? And is Zoom... So I think this Restream, what I'm using now, has a studio for me to hang out in, kind of like Zoom. If I can eliminate Zoom, it'd be great. But probably just going to stick with it because I know it and one less thing to learn. So I will do the Zoom VIP. I'm trying to think of another word for VIP. And create kind of like a, a tribe. You guys can come up with ideas. I was thinking about guinea pigs. Claire's guinea pigs. Because I'm learning with you. I'm learning how to create this environment. This chair never wants to be where I want it. All right. So I have the needle down in the machine. This is the needle. I remember being at a show doing this, and this lady goes, "What is all this?" And I go, "Oh, this finger's the needle. And this finger is the guide on the foot. So however far away the needle is from the guide is exactly how far away your stitching line will be away from the edge of anything that you're trying to sew along the edge of. What will prevent you from being accurate will be whether or not the fabric needs stabilizer and it's not been stabilized, and if you're holding your hands like this versus just pushing toward the foot. So one of you mentioned that you're having trouble getting it to sew accurately. I want you to pay attention to what I talk about now. The iron's going to turn off. I have coffee. I'm going to take a sip. It's iced coffee now. You speak English fine, Ayako. I've spoken to, hundreds of thousands of people in my career. So I have experience with all different languages being spoken to me, but I can't speak another language. I admire anyone that can speak English and their own dialect as well. So what I recommend you do is like a 1/8 inch or 1/16 inch distance away from your top fabric would be where you should have your stitching line. I didn't do that on this. Mine is a lot wider, but I'm going to cut it because I didn't cut it to size yet. So this is where it gets easier. If you have this bigger than you need it, you can do chalk lines of where you actually want to cut it and then stitch close to that line, but still have fabric sticking out. And when you go to cut afterward, well, then you cut accurately a 1/16 inch away from the edge. And you don't have to be that precise because you sewed it first, and it'll all make sense when I go to cut. So I'm going to go ahead now and bring the needle down. And that's in the left needle position. And then move the guide over. One day I'm going to have it so you can see really well from my perspective. That's one of the reasons I brought this machine over, was to try to give you a better perspective. So when you're sewing, if your hands are like this, which a lot of people tend to do, the foot's going to push away from you. You're using the science of resistance with this foot. When you push toward the foot, it pushes back the other way. If you have too light a pressure, well, then it will be like, I like to describe it like this. Okay. Whoopsie. So have you ever water skied, you guys, or snow skied? And you just you have the freedom to just meander about? Well, that's what having less pressure is like. The walking foot gives you that ability to just wander about. Well, say you're a water skier and you're behind a boat and you want to stay in the wake and you have a walking foot on, or you have a single ski. It's harder to stay in the wake than it is if you have two skis unless you get really good at it, because I have experience with both. It's quite something. So basically, using this foot is going to be easier for you to sew straight with than a walking foot will ever be. If you have a FOF sewing machine, you'll disengage your even feed mechanism, or any machine, because they sold their science to other sewing machine companies, and now a lot of companies have the walking foot or even feed mechanism. I would disengage that, because now it gives you too much movement and you can be out of control when you go to sew. I lost track of what I was saying. Sorry, I wish my head was screwed on. Here we go. So basically, I want to push toward the foot, and then it pushes back the other way, unless your pressure's too light. Another thing that I do is kind of put my hand under the quilt. And so you see, I'm not pushing down, which is a tendency of a lot of sewers, because you watch people and they do it. A lot of educators actually do that. Something that Nancy Zeman used to do, and I used to yell at the TV, go, Nancy, stop pulling the fabric through. She was a friend of mine, so it was just a habit that was developed because sewing machines used to only have 2 rows of feed dogs. And with 2 rows of feed dogs, well, there's just too much freedom. We need control. Did I not sew in the right spot? Oh, I didn't sew in the right spot. I'm sewing over where I've already been. Or well, I'll just get there. I needed to go in a little bit here. You should trim your fabric first. I did not, this is a way too short a stitch length. I'm going to go to 3.5. And my speed control was set low from when I quilted the bee on Thursday. So I'm sewing in a bit. I'm not looking at the needle though. I'm looking right here, trying to keep it in the same spot. And I have my foot on regular pressure right now, which is too heavy. I shouldn't have it like this. Oh no, I did have it looser. It's doing really good actually. But it's got, this machine's feed dogs are correct. The other one was having trouble. I probably just need to clean it. So the only thing holding all of these together in this area is the dots of glue that are joining all of these together. And this is simply because I didn't cut it first. I should have cut this top piece just more accurately. Do what I say, not what I do. Okay. Now it's time to trim this down, and this is when we get close to that stitching line, about 1/8 of an inch away. Well, you're also quiet. Are you still there? Are you distracted by the snow falling outside your window? Or the swim meet? Time to trim. Time to be accurate. If I have said anything that is confusing or any of you need a question answered, please, this is the time to write it in the chat. Get in there. And this is the time to see if I ruined it. I don't think I did. Look at that. It's flat again. I got lucky. And I could have damaged the light tablet. Was not a good idea to do what I did. Every time I see this, I go, oh, I want to finish my quilt. But there's just so much to do. I have these little clothespin clips, and they're really good for marking like where you don't want to sew when you sew around a pillow, because they're different than the other clips. I will be using those. I use those for creating a a marking of where I want to not sew the binding on because of how we go to sew the binding on. It's been a while since I bound anything. I have to remember what I did. Sometimes I go and watch my own videos again just to remember what I do. Let's see, this goes here, then it doesn't unplug. There goes the keyboard. Come on, stay in there. Uh-oh. Something just fell off my keyboard. See, now that I don't have the big table, I can position my tablet the way I like it, which is this way. It's funny because I have people go, can you sew without the big table? And then I get people that go, can you sew with a big table? So I try to mix it up, and I have smaller machines and I use those sometimes so that you can see that you can do what I'm doing with a variety of different machines. And my goal is to get my featherweight sewing soon, so I can play around with that with you guys and show you what you can do with your featherweight with our stuff. I have a love-hate relationship with batting. Mostly it loves me and tickles my face. I should do this the other way. Yeah. What I'm doing now is squaring off. This is my favorite of all of my rotary cutters. It's a Fiskars. Feels really good in my hand. Now I'm going to do the other side. This actually has a little lip on it so that I can depend on the edge to be straight. And then you can't see because the camera would never be able to see through this, but I can see through the dark fabric here and kind of see the lines. Not as well as I'd like, but still better than not being able to see them. Come on, get over there. There you go. This is definitely not a good side here. I think I'm going to need to stitch in a little more. So what are you going to do before you put your top on with your back and your batting? You're going to square off your top. Make sure it's the right size so you don't have to fiddle around like I am now. When you slide your tablet around on your table, remember there are feet underneath that you can knock off if you're not careful. All right, I'm frozen on the screen. Why am I frozen? Oh no. Let me switch cameras real quick. So my front camera is frozen. I'm going to try to wake it up real quick, you guys. Well, we're going to test my volume setting. I think I fixed the sound of the music. Why isn't the song playing? It's not playing. Oh, there we go. Hey, that was better. Oh, good. Well, that was a short break, but that was because my front camera froze and it just decided to unfreeze. So I didn't have to do anything. So you want to know what this ruler is called? I bought it so long ago. It's this mat, the edge of this mat, and this has a lip on it so that you can put it along the edge of your mat. If your mat is straight, you can just slide it across. And it is the Olipfa. So that's a great name for it, actually. Oh no, you're frozen too? Oh, come on. What the heck? Oh, that's interesting. What's going on? Oh, come on. Hang in there, guys. Two of my cameras are just not acting right. It's not like the internet's going down, but my cameras are having to come back online. Okay, so that one's back. This one's still not back. Come on. The important one, the close-up. Gremlins. I told those gremlins to stay away on Saturday. So I'm going to give you this to look at again, and hopefully this camera will stay on. Hold on one sec. Well, got it to work. Oh my goodness, goodness, goodness. Yes, so the ruler is like normal on this end and got a lip on this end. And honestly, it's like I think that we could glue something on the end of all of our rulers. It would be really handy to have. It makes squaring off less challenging because as long as your mat is on straight and you line up your lines with your mat, it's almost impossible to cut it incorrectly. Sorry, I just have to turn off the song and the text for the next time I switch cameras. That's an interesting day, week. Interesting week, right? This is what keeps you humble. All of a sudden in my head, Merry Christmas, everybody. That's funny. That's like the chicken dance that plays in my head. Oh, yes. On the mat itself. Is that what you're talking about, Charlene? Creative Living with Cheryl Borden. Yeah, she finally retired. I was a frequent guest on her show. She was wonderful. I mean, she's still with us. Oh my, it's so crooked. I think I'm not going to count that. She did so much good for the college students. I don't know if you are aware of that, but her show helped teach college kids how to do television shows. She was a tremendous mentor. I can't believe how poorly I did on this. Oh, that's because I went snip and So this is why you still want to use your measuring instruments before you count on something being square. It's not too far. I just need to cut off more of this side. I have no idea. I can't keep up with the chat sometimes, so I may be completely off topic. You can pretty much count on Amy and Tina to know what I'm doing, if you ever need to know for sure. So now I have no stitching on that side. Uh-oh. This camera's stuck on an old scene. You too? Hopefully it'll work quickly. Setting it up again. It's like a brand new start. It's a good thing I know how to use this software now. All right. Oh gosh. I don't know. I think that my computer does not like this new program and it's trying to win. Have you guys ever had a battle with a squaring off process? Just so you know, it isn't something I enjoy either. This thing's getting smaller. So now I'm going to look on the mat and see where I got to go. We take some more off the top. I had to figure out which side was crooked, and this was the side. And actually, this is going to make it so I have to go all the way around the quilt again. So you guys will be able to see that the foot can also sew thicknesses. Sew along the edge of thicknesses. I was so sure that this was going to go so smooth. All right, now it's square. Come on, front camera. The front camera doesn't know it's the front. Oh, that's right. There was an update on my button thing today. Unbelievable. Okay. It had to, oh no, what is that? I don't know if I can do this show today. This is ridiculous. Hopefully once I've done this, it'll be done being confused. I'm going to test all the cameras really quick so I can know what I'm up against. So hang on, this could be an interesting ride. There's the top camera. Ooh. And the closed camera. All right, I guess it's figured itself out. Where's my scrap bag? Time for a new scrap bag. I'm kind of embarrassed, but it's like, this is just the equipment. They go, we've got an update. Would you like to update? And I'm always like, oh, I don't know. Are you going to be a good update or are you going to mess me up? Have you guys ever had your phone update and then you couldn't figure out how to use your phone for a while? And this is, in order to do this show, we have like 6 programs all working together. So when you update one, it can affect all 6 programs. All right, I just figured it's just the buttons that needs to update today. That shouldn't be a problem. All right, you guys. You mean your husband recognizes my voice from the other room? Hi, husband. Thanks for letting me borrow your wife. You're going through that now? Oh my gosh. All right, so it's not glued, it's not sewn. I am now going to sew around and we're going to see how well just the static cling from the batting holds this together, and tension or pressure on the presser foot, take it down to 1. And my length is 3.5. All right, here we go. God, no, it's frozen again. What the heck is going on? This is so weird. All right, the front camera's not frozen. And the writing is so teeny. Oh, come on. It's all confused. It's very strange. Come on. Work. Quilting guru, huh? All right, so now it's acting like this camera's not there, and it was just there. I'm certainly not your camera guru. I'm going to try adding a camera. Please, angels. It's like it's not showing this camera. I'm going to try unplugging the camera really quick. That one's frozen. Oh my gosh. I think I'm going to have to restart the software. I'm going to shut it down and turn it right back on. So I think I can do that, and you guys will still be there. Hang on, guys.